Today, we have the most amazing master storyteller. You know who I'm talking about, Rabbi Yoel Gold, to try and watch one of his videos without grabbing some tissues. Warm welcome to Rabbi Yoel Gold. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Leah. It's such an honor to be with you.
How did a Rebbe who's teaching boys, right?
Ninth grade.
Yeah, ninth grade. Yeah. So how did you go? What brought you into? We want to know that this is behind the scenes. By the way, ladies, behind the scenes, we're going to know. We're going to know exactly what and why. That's what. Okay, Rabbi. So maybe tell us a little bit. What drove you? What brought you into video?
Okay, great question. So first of all, a shout out to every teacher, every Rebbe, every mechanech. I really believe that being a Rebbe or being a teacher in a classroom and inspiring students is probably the hardest job you can have, especially in today's generation when we live in the 21st century and there's so much distraction going on. It's super, super hard to draw the children in and get them to learn. And I remember every time I would tell a story, immediately everybody would sit up, and everybody would start listening right away. And I began telling stories in the beginning of the day. Immediately as I walked into the classroom, I had a story ready, and I would tell that story to get people's attention and to captivate my students. I never thought of doing videos the way I do today. That happened by accident almost. I had a call from my aunt 5 years ago. She said, Yoel, I got this great story. She told me the story about what happened when she was praying for a soldier, Barak Ben Orna, and then she went to Israel and she met him. I still remember it like today. As she was talking to me and telling me the story, I remember where I was standing, what I was doing. I had tears streaming down my face. Leah, you're saying you're emotional. Mm-hmm. I'm not that emotional. I was crying over that story. I felt immediately, I had this thought, this has to be shared with the world. If it can inspire me, it can inspire a million other people. So right away, I said to her, why don't you get on camera and tell the story and we'll get it out into the world? And she said, I'm going to call Rabbi Pesach Krohn and tell him the story. He'll write it up in a book. And I said, Rabbi Krohn, I'm a huge fan and he's incredible and he's the best storyteller. But I think we can reach probably a million other people if you do it on camera and we do a video about it. A lot of people don't read today as much as watch. So why don't we do that? And she was hemming and hawing. It was like a novel idea. And she finally said, you know what, Yoel, I'll do it. And she said to me, I'll get on camera and tell the story. And then my wife overheard the conversation. And my wife tells me, Yoel, I've heard you tell stories when you put our kids to sleep. You should be narrating the story. And I said, no. I don't think anybody can tell a story as good as the person who experienced it themselves. I think that that's why I always have the people themselves on camera, not just for credibility, but also if it happened to you, if you felt it, you went through it, you experienced it, then you can give it over better than anybody else. You were there. You're connected to it. But my wife said, you know what? You can narrate it better than anybody else. So you should narrate it. And that's how the whole idea of Hashkifa and the story videos were born.
Wow. And by the way, ladies, you should take from this, look what a wife can do. Like, look at that. Look what she planted the seeds. And what's that called, Sari, when you winnow the, whatever, you put that thing and whatever you put.
Leah, are you talking one of those like old people type things, old world type things again? Like
yes. like the cobbler. Okay, forget it. But anyway, whatever. We're reaping and we're sowing, right? The wife can reap and can take that hoe and make the thing and plant the seeds and look what grows from it. So yes, we're very grateful to your wife for giving us you and all of the videos. By the way, also, how do you do Hashkifa? How do they get to Hashkifa, Rabbi? H-A-W-W.
Okay, first of all, Hashkifa.com, Hashkifa.com, Hashkifa. And what you're saying about my wife, it is so true. I keep telling my wife, I just even told her right now, we just released a Tisha B'Av film. And I said, I want to write, in the credits, the first thing that should come up is to my dear wife, because she is behind me. And it was really her idea for me to get on camera. And she said, please don't put me on screen. I don't need that. I know as long as you know I'm behind you, that's all that counts. So yeah, she gets all the credit. Really.
Shout out to Mrs. Rebbitzin Gold. Okay. So let's go to the So the first story that you had was this one from your aunt, and then how did the other stories come weave in and get to you? I'm not clear on how do people even find you? I mean,
so great. Yeah, so we started. We released that video. We had no idea what the feedback would be like. In fact, we got. Barak himself, I contacted him and I said, would you get on camera? He was still a soldier in the Israeli army back then. And he said, no, I don't want to get on camera. I'm a waiter in a restaurant. I work, overtime, and I work, off hours. And I don't want to draw that type of attention to myself. And I remember it took a long time to convince him to get on camera. And finally he got on camera, and he said to me, I'm only getting on camera if you don't put it on YouTube. I said, I'll just post it on aish.com. I'll post it on a couple of websites. I won't make it public on YouTube. And then he finally agreed, thinking that, okay, it'll be just a video that'll be watched maybe by a couple of hundred people. Within 24 hours of the video's release, we had over 100,000 views.
Oh my God.
And
passed it to each other. When I saw it, I also passed it.
Yeah, and to the point, Leah, where the restaurant where he worked in as a waiter, because that was part of the story, posted the video on their website for marketing purposes because it was gaining so much attention. And I hope that Barak got a raise out of that. I don't know, because, Meat and Wine Restaurant in Herzliya, who's part of that story, they got a lot of business out of that. And I've been told that people come into that restaurant asking to meet him. Is Barak still work here?
Wow.
But
Rabbi Gold, you have a shout out on our Facebook from Sarah Silverberg, who said that the story's about her mother. So she's very excited to be on it here.
That's adorable.
Of course. Her mother was incredible on camera. And, as soon as we saw the feedback, 150,000 views in just, a couple of days, we decided, we're onto something. This might be something that the world can use.
So now, what is the ultimate, what's your mission in life? What's your mission with these videos? Yes, they inspire and maybe they make people feel close to each other. They certainly give you plenty of warm fuzzies and emotional, whatever, they do that. What is the underlying mission behind what you're doing?
Okay, so it's a great question. The underlying mission is to tell people, to remind people that they're not alone. Almost all of the videos have a story about incredible Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence, where people felt the guiding hand of Hashem in their lives. And I just want to be able to present it to people, to other people who are struggling, maybe going through difficult challenges, especially during these times. And I want to give them just a 5-minute reminder in the most powerful, elegant, presentable way. And just remind them, everybody knows deep down that Hashem runs the world. I don't think we have to tell or to teach this to any of your viewers, Leah. I think all of us know that. But in the hustle bustle of life, I think we have to be reminded of that. And just to take a step back and to take a look at 5 minutes, couple of minutes, and remind ourselves that, I'm not alone. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is guiding me. He's really leading every step of my life. And just to give that and reinforce that emunah into people's hearts, that's my goal. You're not alone.
And how do you find this? Gorgeous. How do you find your next story? Do people approach you as, and by the way, thank you to that lady who shouted out. That was awesome. So the question is, how do people know to go to Pesach Krum because he's got so many books, he's a Maggid or whatever. How do they come to you? How do your stories get to you? Or do you get to them?
So at this point, because collectively all the videos have had millions and millions of views and they've been translated into different languages. At this point, we have probably hundreds of emails and texts, calls, I would say on a monthly basis, people who want to share their stories. And, and something about people sharing, first of all, it's a privilege to be able to hear so many stories. And unfortunately, I don't get to hear and read all emails anymore. I have people helping me, but every story is precious. Every story that people reach out and share with me, I really believe is worth sharing with the world. It's hard. It really is hard to decide what story do we do a video on.
Yeah.
But so the way I measure it for myself is if a story personally moves me to tears, I know it'll be dvarim hayotzim min halev. I know that it'll come out from my heart and I'll be able to share it effectively. And so that's the way I do it personally. But yeah, we Baruch Hashem at this point have a lot of people reaching and sharing stories. And some of the stories that don't make it into a video, I write a weekly column in the Ami magazine. And I put in many stories in that magazine for publication.
Oh, that's fantastic. So people, if you, after you watch every video, then you can go to Ami Magazine and catch up on all of his stories there. Let me ask you, how does, and by the way, I'm going to ask you two questions. Okay. The second one you can think about. I'm hoping you're going to tell us, you can tell us a story, throw in a story in there for us. So mull that over while I'm whatever. And, but how is this COVID affecting, like, what are you going to do now? I mean, typically I would imagine you fly. Do you fly to, when you do all your videos, I've seen them in Israel and different parts of the world or whatever, you fly to all of these different places to take the video? And what are you going to do about COVID?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a technical challenge here, but Baruch Hashem, as we've been networking with different videographers and different production teams over the past few years, by now, the people who we've been working with in Israel and in the East Coast and England, we just filmed in all these places for this upcoming Tisha B'Av film. I was in none of these places present. I was present over Zoom while they were filming, and I was interviewing over Zoom. I couldn't be there in person because of COVID. But the production team and all these videographers that we've been working with over the past couple of years, they know the style and they know the drill already. So Baruch Hashem, I don't have to be on site every single time. Last year we filmed for the first time in Denmark, a story with, somewhere in the middle of Yehupitzville, which I also couldn't go to. And it's an experience to be able to reach out and get to meet different people and production teams to be able to work with them. But Baruch Hashem, it's working out. And I hope that COVID is over soon so I can get back on the road. There's nothing more satisfying and gratifying but to sit with a person and hear their story live in person.
Wow. And you have so now you're saying everything can be done somewhat remotely and gathering the stories. How do you, when like you're going to, because our readers, I'm sure our viewers, people who are watching are going to think, oh, I've got a story, whatever. They're going to type it in. You feel free. Everybody that's, welcome to. How do you decide which one it's just if it moves you, if it's an emotional story or it's a God's, you can see God's hand?
If it talks to my heart, and I'll tell you something very interesting about stories. People ask me all the time, what makes a good story? What makes it, what qualifies it to be on video? And I've learned something really, really important about stories. First of all, we all have a story. That's what I want to say. I want to say all of us have a story. We have our own life stories. We have, all of us overcome challenges and struggles in our lives. I always say that life stands on four legs. It's like a table with four legs. One is shalom bayis, relationships. The other is raising children. The other is financial, and the other is health. So you have health, finances, parnasa, relationships, marriage, and we have raising children. And if somebody says all four legs in their lives are sturdy and strong, I say you're lying. Everybody has some weak spot, somewhere where they're struggling. And you're overcoming struggles every day. You're facing challenges every day, which really makes for a good story. Sometimes I think to myself, forget the miracle stories. Even if somebody overcomes a challenge, just a simple story. I mean, that to me is also so precious because we all struggle with challenges. And to be able to put it out there and to tell people, I struggle too and I overcome it. I really think that's really, really important. But what I find with these type of stories, Leah, is most people tend to get on camera and be real in such a way. They're maybe self-conscious thinking, what are people going to think of me if they hear that I struggle in this area or in that area and I overcame this and this struggle? Many, many times people reach out to me and they say, I just wanted to share this story with you, Rabbi Gold, but I want to remain anonymous. Don't tell anybody my name. And I write them back and I say, why remain anonymous? You have a beautiful story, you know? The fact that your grandfather was a Baal Tshuva, he didn't keep Shabbos when he first came to America, and he built a beautiful family, and now you have Shomer Torah mitzvahs in your family. Why are you embarrassed about that? It's just a beautiful, beautiful story, you know? And many times with shidduchim, like I have girls reaching out to me, they experienced a certain siyata d'shmaya with a shidduch, they were struggling, and they were helped, and there's just a beautiful sequence of events of how it came about, but don't want to share it with the world because there was a struggle involved. And I always say to them, it's beautiful. Why not share it with people? Nobody will look down at you. It's only to be respected that you had a struggle and you overcame it. So those type of stories really speak to me, but I find it's extremely difficult to get people on camera and share those vulnerable types of stories. I had you wanted to hear an interesting story. I had a very interesting experience, which you might like. I recently upgraded my phone, and I don't know if you can see it. I upgraded my phone. I went to Apple a couple of months ago, and they gave me this brand new phone. And I walked out of the store, and the way it works there in the Grove, you live in LA, you know how it works. You know, with Apple especially, it's extremely busy in there. They give you a ticket. You have to wait sometimes. I waited. I did the whole shebang. I paid for parking. Finally, I walk out with my brand new phone, and I get into my car, I drive away, I drive out from the Grove there, and I get a call, my very first phone call on my new phone. I pick up, and I say hello, and it was my mom, and I said hello, and I could barely hear her. I said, Mom, I can't hear you on the phone. She says, what do you mean you can't hear me? I'm speaking loud. I said, maybe you are on an earpiece. Take out your earpiece. She said, no, I'm not on an earpiece. I think it's your phone. I said, Mom, it can't be my phone. I just bought this from Apple. It's a brand new phone. So I said, you know what? I'll call you from home. The next thing, I get a call from my wife, the same problem. After 3 calls, and I experienced the same problem, I went back to the Grove, immediately went up to the guy. And I remember I handed him the brand new phone that I just gotten from Apple. And I said, I don't know what's wrong with this phone. You just gave this to me. It's new. Take it back. And the guy looked at me and he smiled. I said, what's so funny? I was aggravated. I was upset. You know,
It's such a
no, I know.
Okay,
the guy takes it and he laughs and he smiles and he said, you forgot to take off the plastic on the, the protector, that plastic thing that comes and it was blocking the receiver. So he says, you forgot to take it off. That's why you can't hear anybody. And I walked out of there and I realized, sometimes we have this plastic cover over ourselves. And we can't connect with other people properly because we're so self-conscious of what everybody's going to think of us. We're trying to protect ourselves. And I want to tell your viewers is that, if you share your struggle, you share your story, people respect it, people look up to you. There's nothing to be afraid of. I encourage people to get on camera all the time and share their stories, not just a miracle story, but even if it's overcoming a challenge or a struggle, those are just as good as the other stories, and we're working on some of those in the pipeline.
It's true if it's not Lashon Hara about anybody, and it doesn't put anybody else down. It's okay. You can't tell Lashon Hara about yourself, but some of the things people are embarrassed about aren't Lashon Hara about them. They aren't, for people who don't know, Lashon Hara is gossip. You know what I'm saying? You're not allowed to tell gossip or say derogatory things about yourself or other people or whatever. That's very crucial. So, but there are many, many things we can share that make us look vulnerable, and that's the key that you're saying is people are afraid to look vulnerable, and so everyone else thinks that their life is perfect, and if they saw behind the scenes, they would realize everybody's struggling with something. So I had a question that came up while you disappeared, which I'm so happy you came back, because I'm like, if we didn't get the answer to this one question, it wouldn't be the Ladies Talk Show. Okay, so here it is the how can people use stories to connect deeper with their husband? That's the main issue what we try and do in the Ladies Talk Show is give people some meat and potatoes of how to connect more, how to have a better relationship, how to have more shalom bayis, more peace in the home. So how can stories help them do that?
It's interesting. It's a perfect segue, because I think the word vulnerable that you just mentioned is so key. I mean, a lot of times in a relationship, in a marriage, what will happen is if we're feeling upset, we're feeling disappointed, what happens is we put up that shield, that plastic covering that drives us farther apart. And I think you really nailed it with the word vulnerability, that it's not so much the technical way of doing it, which is telling a story. It's what's behind sharing stories. What's behind sharing your struggle, your disappointments in life, is vulnerability. And it's sometimes it feels unsafe to be vulnerable in a relationship, especially when we don't feel valued, or we're feeling upset about something and disappointed. And I think it's those times especially that we have to let our guard down and kind of say, ouch, I'm feeling a certain way, and just be vulnerable and real with your spouse. And it's not so much the storytelling as what's behind the storytelling, which is exactly what you're saying, vulnerability.
Yeah, Leah, we have a few Instagram comments. So firstly, a bunch of ha-has, people finding this extremely funny. I think they're finding Rabbi Gold, the fact that Rabbi Gold had the shield on, because they're all young people on our Instagram. They're like, oh, come on, the shield is on? So I definitely got a chuckle out of that. But no, actually, someone wrote, we're all wearing shields now, literally, because with Corona. So it's like, really
mask, right? Yeah.
And also it was mentioned that the lesson of this story, like Leah, you were asking for like a marriage type lesson, is that you need to listen to your mother and your wife when they tell you they can't hear you, that it's not their phone.
Wow, I love that. Oh, I love that. That's great. That's great. Who said that? What's your name?
What's her name? Does she want a shout out?
Yeah, a shout out. That is, I literally have to scroll through like all of these things. That is Sarah. Sarah on Instagram.
I'm gonna use that one. That's great. Thank you for that.
So, how would you? Our students really like to work on themselves. I mean, that's what we're all doing, trying to improve ourselves, trying to be maximize our potential. We're not here to sort of just float through life. We want to raise our, there's where we are, right? And then there's the gap of where we'd like to be. And in terms of inspiration, how does Rabbi think we should be able to use stories to maximize our own potential?
That's a great question. First of all, with maximizing your potential, I would say it's, I don't know if it's using stories as much as knowing where you want to be and moving every day a little bit farther into that direction. I don't know if it's storytelling as much as having outline a goal, where you want to be in 5 years from now, and every day moving a little bit towards that goal and making progress. Stories are there to inspire you in the moment when you're forgetting and you need to be reminded of Hashgacha Pratis and you need to be inspired in the moment. But ultimately, it comes down to doing, having a vision and doing. And if somebody would have told me 5 years ago that I would be on the Leah show and I would be speaking to so many people, and my videos would inspire millions of people, I would have laughed at you. But I knew that I wanted to get out there and really touch people's hearts. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I was constantly looking for opportunities and slowly making progress with one video at a time. So I think just take that model into your own life and see, where do you want to be? Ask yourself the honest question: where do I want to be in 5 years from now, in terms of my relationship with my husband, in terms of with my children, in terms of my growth, my spiritual growth, whatever you're trying to work on, have a solid picture of where you want to be, and every day, take it easy, go one step at a time. I remember when we moved to LA. LA is a very health conscious culture, Leah. You know that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very
kale sandwich, like kale and cream cheese. I have friends that have kale and cream cheese sandwiches. I'm like, okay, no, I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm just saying it's LA, dude. Right? Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And I remember I moved there with my wife 5 years ago, and I remember, like, I was so overtaken by this health conscious culture, I decided to start juicing every day. Juicing is a big thing.
Yeah. For people who don't know what juicing is, you take like a whole bunch of carrots and you put them through this machine and it makes juice out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You have this machine and you buy this, organic green vegetable, whatever vegetables you want to put in there. And I was really excited. I was really pumped. I knew that I wanted to be healthier. And I went to Whole Foods and I bought myself the greenest, most organic vegetables I can find. And I went to Best Buy. I bought myself the most expensive juicer I can find. Came home and I started juicing 3 cups a day. And within 48 hours, I was turning over in pain. I couldn't walk. And I said to my wife, I said, I can't believe this. I'm juicing for 48 hours later and I'm not feeling well. She said, how much are you drinking? I said, I'm drinking 3 cups a day, these big cups. She said, that's why you're feeling sick. You can't go so fast. You go a little bit. You want to be healthy. Take a little bit of juice at a time. Drink it, just a half a cup. And that's what it is with every single thing. It's in every area of life. But the most important part is have a vision, have a goal, and then, it's ABCs. I'm sure all of you know that, but we can all be reminded, don't be hard on yourself and go very, very slow. Make the progress step by step, and then you'll get there.
That's awesome. Okay.
Leah, actually, Rabbi Gold, it's interesting because Leah asked the question and it actually, I can completely see how somebody can maximize their potential through your stories, because what I found always, I've loved your stories from day one when I started watching them, but what I found so powerful in your stories, because there's so much out there today and there's so much content and age testings and Tarny time, and there's so many different platforms where you can see inspiring information.
And ladiestalkshow.com. Thank you.
Exactly. Ladies Talk for Marriage for sure. Number 1.
Right.
But what I found so unique about your platform is that your stories never scream at you and they never yell the message out. It's very subtle. It's woven throughout the whole story. And so you're not overwhelmed with this like mussar or preaching or like, oh my God, you need to be this or you need to do that. Or if you don't, like you feel very relaxed as you're watching it. And so the message goes in really well because you're not being yelled at on it. It's coming to you underneath. And then at the end, you always like sort of tie the message in, but it's so gentle that you can hear it. And then afterwards, what I found for myself, there was so many times I've listened to stories and I actually was able to like say, oh my gosh, I had like really similar things happen in my own life. And I could take my own stories and create these, they may not be Yoel Gold, Rabbi Yoel Gold worthy, but I can create these own messages in my own life that will help me grow. So it's a very powerful mechanism to get the message out to people. Super powerful.
2 great points. I'm so glad you brought up these points because I work really hard on not preaching on the videos. It's super, super important to me to keep it gentle and not to yell and push and impose whatever lesson is in the story. To let people digest it on their own is super, super important. And I'm so glad that you've recognized that and you brought that up because I work actively on that. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. And in terms of being able to watch a story and then apply it to your own life, that's a great point. It's absolutely true. So many times we miss the messages and the stories in our own lives because we're in such a rush. We're trying to live and survive, but we have a lot of those similar experiences just in a different context, different variations of them. So it's very true.
So I had a question that came in from somebody. It says, what story touched and affected you the most?
Oh my, that's a hard question. What story touched and affected the most? I'll tell you, it's a story that I didn't put out. It's a story that It's a story that I really wanted to put out. And Rabbi Pesach Krohn said over this story 25 years ago in Chafetz Chaim Heritage Foundation on Tisha B'Av. And I heard it from him many times over the years. And I called him, I said, Rabbi Krohn, I would really like to do a video on that story. Can I have the protagonist's name and his contact? And he gave it to me. And I contacted the protagonist. And I'm going to tell you the story very, very, very quickly. It's super powerful and it's very important for this year, this time of year. It was a husband, you might have heard of the story before, a husband who he would lose patience with his wife sometimes, and his wife was Israeli, and she would always tell him, "Zelach Hashuv, it's not important. Don't get so upset over it." And to make a very long story short, one time his wife asked him to bring up a checkbook to the mountains. He was working during the week in the city, and she was in the mountains upstate in the country with her kids. And she said, I really need this checkbook. Can you bring it up? And he brings it up, and he comes there for Shabbos, and she puts away the checkbook maybe next to a crib, the baby's crib, and doesn't touch it for the next 3 weeks. And every time he would come up to the mountains, he would see the checkbook in the same place. He would really get upset. Like, here you are asking me to bring this. And, I went out of my way to go back home to bring the checkbook. And for 3 weeks, it's just lying around. You haven't even touched it. Why did I go out of my way to bring it for you? So he decided not to say anything because his wife would always say, Zeh lachashov, Zeh lachashov. And very sadly, his wife passed away a couple of days later, and he came back, and the first check he wrote from that checkbook was to the Chevra Kadisha. And
the Burial Society. Wow.
The Burial Society. And and he took the checkbook and wrote on the back, he wrote Zeh lachashov, and he framed it, and he always had it up on his wall, reminding himself that Zeh lachashov, Zeh lachashov, Zeh lachashov. And this person is a very special.
It's not important. That's
don't get worked up over.
Don't get worked up over something. So what she considered trivial or whatever. He was getting all worked up for. So that was what he wrote.
Yes.
Picture. Yeah.
Yes. And anyway, so I reached out to the person. Rabbi Kron gave me his number, and I reached out to him, and I said, it would inspire so many people if you can actually share that story. It's a vulnerable story to share because you have to tell people that. You were impatient with your wife. It's not as comfortable to share on camera. But I said, about how many tens of thousands of people you can inspire with the story, and they'll walk away with the message of Zeh lachashov. It's not important. Whatever trivial matters you have in your relationship, in the big picture, really, is it really that important? Are you going to remember it in a week from now or in 2 months from now? And in the beginning, he was very hesitant. He didn't want to do it. And finally, he said, okay, Rabbi Gold, I'm ready to get on camera, but I need 2 months. Unfortunately, when the time came, he told me to call him back. He passed away. He suddenly passed away himself, and we never could do that. We could never do that story. And I remember calling Rabbi Kron, and I was crying, and I was so upset because I really wanted for him to have that story out into the world and inspire, maybe millions with that story. And it never happened because, he didn't get around to it. He was super busy at the time with work. And it was just one morning he didn't wake up, and we never got to do that story. So I think that experience was probably the most powerful experience in the work that I do, because it reminded me of very, very important words. Chazal say, the rabbis teach us, Imlo achshav emosai, that, besides for Zeh lachashov, which is the message in the story that don't get caught up in trivial matters, also, like, if you have something you want to do, don't wait till tomorrow. Do it today. Do it today, because nobody knows what opportunities we'll have tomorrow. If you have an opportunity to do it today, just do it. I always tell my kids, they wear Nike, they love Nike. I said, take Nike, wear it and enjoy it, but take in the message. Just do it, and do it now. That's probably the most powerful experience in terms of stories that I've ever had.
Wow. So Rabbi Gold, we have a lot of Instagram people saying that this story was so powerful and they can learn from it now. So even if it wasn't told by the people it happened to, the message is still so powerful. And it's the message of don't waste time on unimportant stuff, which I think is coming across.
Yeah.
Thank you. It should be a source for neshama.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, that's a really, it kind of makes it, the question I have, how do you deal with Lashon Hara issues, about gossip issues? Because, I'm sure you've asked rabbis about how a person can tell a story that either makes them look bad. I mean, where's the line between being vulnerable? And I'm saying this in a way to find out, this is the behind the stories show, but to, how you handle that, but also in terms of for the viewers, for people to say, when you're sharing something with your husband where you're trying to get closer and you're talking about something that makes you look bad or vulnerable or makes you, you want to present a certain image to your husband. I mean, I know women who let it all hang out. They chew with their mouth open, whatever. Okay, it's do what I do, whatever. Shachon songu, whatever. Toots your boat or whatever. But there's a certain, image that we want our husband to think that we've got it together, that we're on top of things, that we're dependable, that we're, and if we're saying, a student called me and she said she's having the hardest time with COVID. She said she loves her kids desperately, with the whole being, she loves her kids, but she never had the experience where she's got 4 or 5 kids all at home, all at the same time, all on various Zoom classes and whatever. Now they're probably in camp, but when I talked to her a few weeks ago, and she said she just isn't coping. And she feels like so many years, she has been, the strong one in the relationship. And now she can't even share her vulnerability with her husband. So, I mean, this is a kind of a rabbinic question. I'm asking you to put on your rabbinic hat, but also in terms of stories, how she would share this with him, where the line is between, being vulnerable and letting yourself be vulnerable, but at the same time having, like they said, the Instagram people with the plastic, on the phone or whatever, also giving the impression that you've got it all together.
Yeah, I mean, okay, first, I'm not the marriage expert that you are, Leah, but I would say the word is context. It depends what context you have when you share your vulnerability. If your context is negative and you're communicating a negative vibe, I'm sick and tired and I'm falling apart and all that, I think that would be the wrong context in which to share that struggle that you're going through. But if your context is, honey, I'm really struggling right now, and it's not one of negativity and one of blaming and one of, I have had it, which could be the context when you're talking about vulnerability. I think if your context is right, then you can share that struggle that you're going through with your husband, and he'll take it in. But I've learned for myself in my marriage that my context, it can't be blame, it can be falling apart, it can be losing control. It's more, I'm in control of myself, but I want to share this with you so you know it, so I can bring you in instead of putting that on.
It's fantastic. And how do you deal with the gossip issue, the Lashon Hara issue about when people go on camera and they're being vulnerable to, if they're saying something that makes them in their own mind look bad? How do you deal with that issue?
First of all, I would never, ever push anybody to get on camera. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example right now on the Tisha B'Av film, right? We have one of the stories we have showing today, tonight, and tomorrow.
About it, by the way, I'm excited about it. I've seen I saw the trailer. Everybody's got to watch the trailer. We've got the link below. You have to watch the trailer. You'll definitely want to watch this. Okay, good. So sorry, you have this lady tomorrow.
We have a very famous story, which maybe most of you have heard, but it's so powerful to hear it from the people themselves and to really see it rather than just hear it. It's about, in short, how a chayal, an Israeli soldier, saved the yeshiva boy's life in Hebron. And it turned out 21 years earlier, the mother of the yeshiva boy had convinced the mother of this Israeli soldier not to have an abortion. And basically, the mother of the yeshiva boy had saved this boy, this chayal, and thereby enabled this chayal to save her son 21 years later. It's just an incredible story. But here's to your question. We actually could have gotten both mothers on camera. The one, the yeshiva boy's mother and the chayal's mother, who was going to have an abortion. But I personally didn't feel comfortable having someone on camera share such a vulnerable, experience or challenge or struggle they had when they were pregnant or whatever like that. So, and she didn't feel 100% comfortable. She would have done it, but I would never put somebody on camera saying that about themselves. Again, it's that your question. I don't want to bring people down as they share their story. I want to lift them up, which is what you do to everybody you're interviewing in your show. You're doing that to me right now. Thank you so much. You're doing a great job.
We're very lucky to have you.
the purpose is ultimately to uplift everybody, and that's why I wouldn't put her on the film. But we do have the other mother, and it's anonymous, and nobody knows who it is, and nobody will ever know who it is. But it's just to highlight the hashgacha pratis and how this woman, she was working as a pharmacist, and this other woman came in. She was buying this medication, and she said, "Why?" And she started talking to the woman, and she said, "You know what? I struggle with infertility. If you have an opportunity to have a child," and she started sharing, which is what I'm talking about, her own struggle with infertility, which is not Lashon Hara. And because she shared her own struggle from behind the counter in a pharmacy with infertility, this woman who was going to buy that medication stopped taking the medication and thereby had a boy 9 months later who saved her son 21 years after that. So what I'm saying is, don't share your struggle of wanting to have an abortion, but share your struggle with fertility. There's nothing wrong. That's not Lashon Hara. We all struggle. We struggle financially. We struggle, with, raising children, the common everyday challenges that we go through. You're not alone. And that goes under the banner of what I do. You're not alone. Hashem is with you. You're not alone. People are with you. Everybody is with you. We're all in the same boat together.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, the final questions from
and it's actually it's so interesting. We have a lot of people commenting to that story, how it's giving them chills, and it's such a powerful one. But it's interesting, even in that story, that sometimes people, because they take Lashon Hara almost to like the laws of Lashon Hara almost to the extreme, and they think we can't share because it might be Lashon Hara, they sometimes prevent themselves from even getting the help they need. Like, this woman needed to share that she was thinking of having an abortion. If she never said that, the other woman would have never told her not to do it. Like, meaning she was opening up herself and making herself vulnerable. That led, and today we're so out to cover up what we look like and what our lives are like, so that, God forbid, someone should see anything negative. And because we're not as vulnerable as we should be, and I always say, Leah, we used to talk about this all the time, that I used to share so much of my story with my husband and my marriage story on publicly, only because I felt if anyone can gain from it, there's so much to do. Like, there's so much I can benefit from that. And I think that needs to be the dividing. If you're just spilling to just like vent and there's no purpose, I think that would probably be
and our viewers should know that. And Rabbi, we asked a million shilas from very high rabbis to make sure Sarit could do that, because Sarit kind of does talk Lashon Hara in a sense. This about her husband did this, she did that, or whatever, and we got complete reshus. How do you say reshus? Permission, because it was to help other people. Her husband didn't mind. There were a lot of reasons why she's able to do that. And so,
and there is a question coming through, is Rabbi Gold, just a question so I don't lose it, is how do you juggle and the being a Rebbe and doing this? Because everyone's assuming being a Rebbe for 9th graders is not an easy job. So how do you juggle your life?
Okay. I'll be very honest. It's very difficult to juggle. I started out being a Rebbe full time, and then as this got busier and got bigger, I had to pull back Fridays and Sundays. I couldn't come into yeshiva anymore, and I really had to pull away from being a Rebbe. And then this year I had to pull away, and I'm coming in once a week. So I'm not full time the way I used to be. I am still connected with my students, but it's exactly that. It's impossible, to wear so many hats and perform at every level effectively. Give yourself 100%. I heard a great quote from a friend of mine. He said, if you're 99% in, you're 100% out. So I just don't feel that it's fair to students who has a Rebbe who has so many different things and responsibilities, who can give them 100% of attention. So I actually did pull back, and I think that anyone who's a Rebbe should be a Rebbe completely devoted to that avodas hakodesh, to that holy task. And I don't go around telling people I'm a 9th grade Rebbe, because I actually did pull back. I did that for many years, but now it's on a very, very low scale. With regard, I just want to say one thing with regard to the abortion. That woman did not share her abortion story. She went to pick up her medication, and she didn't say anything. But to your point, it is true that people are so much more self-conscious nowadays, especially with all that's being posted on social media about the perfect lives that we live, that people are even more self-conscious to share their struggles and to say, you know, my life is actually not so perfect. And that divides us, that disconnects us. And that's why I do encourage and agree with both of you that in the proper context, it should be shared.
How can people support you, Rabbi? How can they support your organization and what you're doing?
I so much appreciate that. Please go to hashkifa.com and you can see on the website, donate, purchase the film. First of all, go and get this film, 50 minutes. It's for all ages. Your children will be completely captivated. I know that I'm biased in this testimonial, but I don't believe it's me. I really honestly don't believe it's me that is the one who is so successful here with the film or anything I do. I think it's the people themselves on camera and their stories and their vulnerability. I think really that's what drives this. And it's produced in a very cutting edge way. So, you know, for the sake of you, your family, and a meaningful Tisha B'Av, something that's captivating and also entertaining and inspiring all at the same time, go to hashkifa.com, HASHKIFA.com, and purchase the film. There's a special offer for last year's film and this year's film for $26. And get the tissues, like Leah said.
Get the tissues. Get your tissues out. Yeah.
Leah, we have actually on Rabbi Gold on our Instagram, Tamara has said, wow, he must have been an amazing Rebbe. We need more of him, more like him. Yeah. So shout out for that. But I do have a question that came through our Facebook, which is super important. And hopefully, I think it's for both Leah and Rabbi Gold. Nechama asks, is it good sharing our stories, even with struggles? Some people don't want to sound like downers. Isn't it better to just keep things private?
Keep things private or?
Yeah, meaning not to share. To just, you know, you have something that happened, whatever, keep it to yourself. Keep things private. Nobody wants somebody who's down or, you know, complaining or whatever, sharing too much. How do you balance that?
The word is context. Again, it's like we spoke before in the marriage. It depends what your context is when you're sharing it. If you're sharing it in a downer type of way, which a lot of people in a complaining type of way, in a blaming type of way, then don't share it at all. That would just give out negative energy and people will turn off. Nobody wants that. But if you're sharing your story with a proper context, a context of, you know what, I'm struggling with this. I just need some chizuk. And that's okay. It's okay to ask for chizuk. You know, you're not sharing it in a negative context. You're sharing it as, you know, I just want to get it off my chest. And you can say that. I just need to get it off my chest. I just need the chizuk. I need the inspiration. And by the way, I would never do a video of someone who's just struggling or in the middle of their struggle. I want to uplift people and tell them there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm talking about people who have been through something. They felt the warm touch of Hashem's guiding hand in their life. They've been through it, and now they're on the other side, and they can tell other people, you know what? You'll get through it too. You know, it's not the end of the world. I know it's hard right now. That's what I'm looking to do. But if you are in the middle of a struggle, of course, struggles are private. They should not be shared with the whole world on camera. Your struggle is private, and when you do share it with the proper people, with the appropriate people, make sure you have the right context.
Yeah, and Rabbi Gold on Torah Anytime's live stream, Mo actually said, and everyone should obviously ask their Rav, but he said, according to his Rabbi, there's no prohibition regarding sharing your own, meaning if you're speaking about yourself and it's not involving anyone else, then it's up to you to decide to what level you want to share, and there's no prohibition against that, which, you know, which makes it, everyone can.
Right. And I would add to it, there's exactly awesome way for people to think about it and when to share and how to share. But I would also add to that if your motivation for sharing this is to rant, okay, and that's we're allowed to rant. We're women. Guys also can rant, I guess, but women especially, we need to rant sometimes, okay? That's one thing. And if you preface it by saying, I just need to rant a little bit, you know, that's one thing. But if the underlying motive of what you're doing is to get closer to your husband and to bond more and to bring them into you and closer to you, that is the world of difference. If your motivation is to be right or to push them away or blame or, you know, or just let them know how miserable you are, that's going to backfire. That's not an appropriate use of your maturity, of your growth, of your beautiful soul. You want to have a motivation deep from within of connecting. So before you go spilling it and sharing, and she said, should you keep it private or whatever? It depends on who also, in other words, if this is your husband, if it's friends or whatever, and you're just pouring out negativity, maybe that, a good friend is one who she tells you, she complains as much to you as you complain to her. Okay. If you have a friend who you're doing all your complaining with and you don't listen to them complain, that's not really a good friendship. It's kind of like you need to sometimes get that off your shoulder, and you need to vent that and get those people in your life. That's important, who can keep it confidential and who will also bolster you. If you say, oh, my husband did this and my husband did that, you don't want someone to say, oh, what a jerk, no, you want to say, oh, that must have hurt, but think of it from his side, maybe this, maybe that, so you want somebody who's going to build you to have closeness in your marriage, not somebody who's going to tear you apart. So pick those people carefully. But if it's for your husband, it's a matter of volume. Is he walking in the door, and every day he walks in the door, you barrel him over with all of the things. This one did this and that one, and can you believe it? And we had a Zoom class and it didn't work, and we, whatever. Are you every day when he walks in the door? Like, how's that working for you, right? So if you want to build that closeness, you'll pick your battles, pick your things. What can I say to my sister that I can get it off my chest so that I don't have to tell him every detail? Yes, I'll tell him that the car died and you had to walk 2 miles. I don't know. No one's going out right now anyhow, but whatever. But do you have to tell him every detail by every detail? Save that for your girlfriends or for sister, your mother, whatever. Just chill. So it's the matter of volume, what you're going to share. But again, the deep thing, the deep take-home message is to come from the motivation of trying to bond and get closer and connect more. So that's it. Okay, this was fit. Anything else you'd like to say before we sign off, Rabbi? Anything?
I just want to say thank you so much for having me on your show. I really enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed this show, and I'll look out online now. Now I know. I wasn't so aware of what you were doing, but now I'm in. So thank you for having me. And please go to hashkifa.com, and you can always contact me over there as well if there's anything you want to share or just to give some feedback. I take criticism as well, as long as it's constructive.
Yeah, as long as it's come from the right motivation. Okay, this is Leah Richeimer for the Ladies Talk Show. Thank you, Rabbi. We'll see everybody next time.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.